I don't think it's a U-turn. I think it's an absolute inevitability. I think I said a year ago that these two factions will get together and find a solution, and the solution will be found when both of them have given one another a bloody nose. And when the golfers were sanctioned, and that sanction was upheld in the courts, it pushed LIV into a certain direction, and with LIV and their resources were never going to go away, so there was always going to be this resolution. Whether we like it or we don't like it, the reality was that LIV were not going to go away. They had the resources and the money, tragically, to turn out most people's lights for predominantly the wrong reasons, but they are what they are. So this wasn't Kerry Packer breaking up cricket and taking the Rebels away for a period of time. This is an entity that has 650 billion pounds or dollars as a sovereign wealth fund. So the reality of it was there was always going to be this situation. Anyone that didn't think that was naive.
Was it always going to be this situation, Rupert? It was always going to turn out this way? If you can't beat them, join them?
Ultimately, yes. And, that's what Rory McIlroy said last year in some statements, but, basically echoing what Simon said. The harsh reality is the PGA Tour have suddenly offered these multi-million-pound events, but actually what was behind the scenes, he's had to do it for commercial reasons, to back up his pledges for these huge increase in purses on his own tour. And suddenly he was probably looking at a bit of an economic dark hole because sponsors weren't necessarily going to get the field they wanted. That was definitely the case on the DP World Tour because some of the fields, while we may have seen a great winner last weekend and Tom McKibben, in terms of the quality and the sort of stardust in those fields, it was pretty poor. So this is an economic reality. Now, we don't know the terms of the deal and how much money the Saudis are, or the PIF, not Live Golf, but PIF are offering to run this. I mean, but it presumably is an eye-watering amount of money. It is, again, because they can afford to, because ultimately the Saudis want to dominate in terms of the finances of world sport. And we're seeing it in golf. They've clearly done their bit in other sports. We're seeing, getting involved in football to such an extent. Let's be honest, that's what Saudi money at Newcastle United, however brilliant they were, they're being bankrolled by Saudi Arabia. So this is the issue. They have a huge agenda in trying to promote the country. They ultimately want it to be a tourist destination. And this is, I'm getting golf and all the corporate support that golf has. It's very much a corporate game. It gives them a feel-good factor.
Danny, look at some of the comments coming in. There's Tony, a Liverpool fan. Everyone's got their price. Money corrupts us all.
Correct. But the thing you mentioned, Rory, Justin Thomas at the beginning of this. I mean, there's nowhere for them to go other than to crack on and join in. I mean, I don't have the same sympathy that I hear lots of other people have for them because, although I understand their point of view, you make your choices in life. Sometimes these hurdles come and you have to make a choice. Some of the other lads have made the right choice because they're quids in. They made their choice to stick with it, and it's fallen around them. They're both wealthy guys, not the end of the world, but I don't share the same sympathetic view that lots do in some of the things I've read this morning, because ultimately we all make choices.
I think it's fantastically interesting that the most divisive character at this moment in time is being marginalised, because I don't think Greg Norman's been particularly facilitatory at creating anything other than division for years. So it's interesting that he's been marginalised, isn't it, Rupert?
Absolutely, because as I say, this was done behind his back. It was done at the up the food chain, as it were, to get sorted, and that's what's happened. And Jay Monahan, I mean, maybe you might have to question, well, how does he sit in all this? As he's saying, justifying it. But I just wondered what the players' meeting was like last night in Canada as he spoke to the players, because, it might be all fine and dandy for the richer will get richer in this, because obviously if there's a team event, they'll only want the star names. Where does that leave the sort of middle of the road PGA Tour player, the European Tour player? Because will they be able to feast on these new riches, just like the LIV golfers have clearly been able to? But from a fan's perspective, fantastic now that at least we'll see Brooks Koepka back on the PGA Tour, not this year, but maybe there might be the odd exception along the way. But will we see Lee? Well, I do know that we got the British Masters coming up. Will that mean there might be the odd European Tour member or former European Tour member able to play in that? I don't think so,
but Rupert, when you know Keith Pelley, the DP World Tour Chief Executive, I mean, when he comes away with, I would say it's a great victory for global golf. It's fantastic victory for the consumer. It's great for European golf. I'm thrilled. Is he? Is he really?
Well, the reason he's thrilled is because he's got a bucket load of money coming his way.
Yeah, but
because
that's it.
DP
But that
ultimately.
thrills most
Saudi
people.
Arabia equals buckets load of money.
But it saved the DP World Tour, because if it had carried on as it would before, the Asian Tour, where they're playing for $5 million events, what we had last week was a €2 million event in Germany, the Porsche Open, which used to be a bit of a landmark event on the European Tour. Well, you see, that's the issue. Now he can get those star names to come back. He can keep sponsors happy, because Porsche had been talking that they would be possibly pulling out. Well, now they might be persuaded to stay in. I don't know the full.
So are we going to see a Ryder Cup in Saudi Arabia anytime soon?
Well, probably not. It will always be in Europe.
Why probably not?
Well, no, it's never going to be there, because it's Europe versus America.
Rupert,
Never say never.
We thought this moment would never happen, Rupert, and it has.
Well, no,
look at who's claiming a victory. Donald Trump.
But why did
a big, beautiful, glamorous deal for the wonderful world of golf.
No, he wants his golf course to be patronised.
His team event will clearly be going, as they already do, will go to Saudi Arabia. So that will then give all the best golfers a chance to go. But it's how they're going to fit the team concept now into the regular tour. Will it become an end of season sort of post end of season junket for those players to then take part in a team competition, fitting around the main tour, a bit like the way T20 develops at the beginning?
But Sammy, can we not just simplify this? Yesterday, the Saudis bought golf.
Yeah, but I don't understand the characterization you just put on it. I don't think any sensible observer didn't think that this was going to find a solution between the two factions. And that was always going to be an inevitability.
Do you think Rory McIlroy thought that?
Well, I don't care what Rory McIlroy thought.
Well, you should, because his voice was extremely relevant throughout.
But he's a player, Jim. The players don't determine the outcomes. They determine a degree of the outcomes.
Yeah, but he took the moral high ground and stood by it.
He took a high ground that suited him for a variety of different reasons, in the same way that Tiger Woods talked about legacy tours and legacy events, and they all have their own values, and none of them are going to the poorhouse anytime soon. The hypocrisy of the situation, the DP World Tour is funded by Middle East money. So what we're talking about here, what are we arguing about here? The principle, none of us like the way that the Saudis or the Middle Eastern money is operating. It's corrupting, polluting, and creating a sports division that's going to destroy certain aspects of sports as we go forward, whether it's boxing, whether it's football, and now golf. But this was an absolute nailed-on inevitability, and all these players getting up in arms. Well, you know, with due respect, you are not the wheel, you are the cog.
Yeah, but I mean, in the Times, a stunning coup. We build it, LIV Golf, shock merge. Nobody saw this coming, not even Greg Norman. Is that not the case, Rupert?
No one did see it coming. As I say, the RNA were having a meeting and various people having meetings, and jaws dropped the breadth of the golfing world. But it's absolutely right. It was going to happen. And
so if you didn't see it coming, okay, Rupert, because I did, and I said it a year ago, what did you think was going to happen then? Did you think LIV were going to disappear and not carry on with this? Did you think that the PGA were going to stay in their position of players being siphoned away, value being sucked out of the tournaments, and sponsors being left? Everybody knows, every grown-up in the room knew that there was going to be a solution, and it was likely to be this.
Yeah, but the point is, we didn't know it was going to happen quite so quickly.
So it's a timing issue then?
Well, it's more than just that. It's actually because last week we'd seen them even talking at the memorial. You know, there didn't seem to be any indication. What happens is this it's been very cleverly done by the very small group of people to got round a table. There was no leaks. There was no nothing. They got it done.
They got rid of the division. Got rid of the noise. Got rid of the Greg Normans in the background that are creating nothing but division. Yeah. Got rid of the and looked at one another over a year, where the PGA Tour pushed back and gone, right, you aren't playing and we're going to sanction you. Court scenarios have been upheld. LIV have decided they're going to double down, they're going to carry on. So eventually these two factions were going to sit in a room with the background noise, the little people out of it, and get the guys that can do a deal. And that's what's happened.
Thomas, I can't really disagree with you. But it's just the timing. I mean, I know that the first inkling we got is that members of the European Tour were told at 8:30 yesterday morning. There was a meeting from various committee members on the European Tour. They knew yesterday morning that this release was coming out. And then it comes out at 3:00 in the afternoon, I think, our time. So that was the first inkling that people got of it yesterday morning, because this small group of people, which would have included the people from PIF, Jay Monaghan, probably an assistant, Keith Pelly, and maybe an assistant from I don't know the exact makeup of the people who were in this small group of who came up with this plan to merge golf. But clearly, the Saudis then put money on the table, and it maybe have been a pretty
Rupert, before you go, in a couple of sentences, is this a good thing for your sport, the sport you love?
It brings, from a fan perspective, yes, but it's still the players have got to get their head around it as to how they manage the fallout, because someone will be saying, well, you took all that money and we didn't benefit, so something's got to be, because we took one view and now suddenly the PGA Tour has given in.
Well, they're not going to get a lot of bloody choice, are they? Because there's one organisation now. They've got nowhere to go. They can't, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll go off to nowhere.